What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. You know, every time I think I have Nintendo figured out, they do some weird stuff like what we're going to talk about today and drop a trailer on a new item that I have no idea what this thing is, but we're going to talk a bit about it and what I guess it could be. And then PlayStation on Twitter, specifically PlayStation UK, started a whole argument, a bit of a controversy over what one of the buttons is called, and I need to get to the bottom of this. You guys need to tell me, because I did a poll on Twitter, which we'll go over, and it seems to be completely against what Sony themselves, PlayStation, thinks the button is called. So this should be fun. As always, guys, enjoy these videos. Make sure you hit the like button. It does help out. And get subscribed so you can stay up to date on all the gaming news going on in the gaming world. And we're going to start today with Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross. Not that the games are coming out to other platforms. I know some of you are probably hoping I was about to say that they're out now or something. But the music is. Yeah, the music you can go listen to on Spotify right now. Square is starting to kind of play around a bit more with the music in their different series and put them on places like Spotify, and this is pretty cool. They tweeted out that it was going to be there, and then boom, they dropped several tracks for both Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross, and yeah, you just go listen to them on Spotify, have them on in the background while you're doing stuff and everything. Great soundtracks to listen to, especially Chrono Trigger. Awesome stuff. I do like this, and we just talked in the past few weeks about Nintendo removing soundtracks and stuff from YouTube, and it's something I would like to see Nintendo do more of, or like we talked about before, add something like that music streaming to their online application that you have on your cell phone, and then maybe add something to the Switch where it's a full music streaming service. I think that'd be really neat, and I'm glad to see Square, who they have some awesome music in their backlog, do things like put it on Spotify. Good to see. I've also seen some questions or even concerns around how Astral Chain is doing sales-wise, performance-wise, because of course, if it does well enough, this could end up being a series for Platinum Games, and well, they tweeted this out. Thanks to all of you who've helped make Astral Chain such a success, Platinum Games artist Hajime Kimura celebrates with this cheerful cast illustration. So, there you go. Platinum Games themselves saying that the game is a success, and yeah, I mean, we saw the sales on Famitsu, and I didn't think Astral Chain was going to light up the Famitsu sales charts, but I am curious how it does on something like the MPDs, although it did come out like right at the end of the month. It seems to be doing pretty well in the UK and other places, and we're even seeing some stores and stuff sell out of it. So it could have had semi-limited stock in the first place, but it sounds like at least Platinum Games is pretty happy with how it's selling, and maybe Nintendo will give us an update or something at their next quarterly briefing that they do in the report, but so far it seems so good. At least it's rated highly, it's a great game, and Astral Chain is definitely one you want to check out. Also, if you forgot about Days Gone, but maybe you played it quite a bit and you beat it, well, they're doing some extra stuff with it. They're going to do Game Plus, for example, and some extra difficulty modes, and here's the thing, I do like that Sony is going back to these games that didn't score well or weren't even like overly popular. It did at least sell semi-well, but they're going to be adding new trophies, they're going to be doing New Game Plus, they're going to be doing a couple of different difficulty modes. Now, of course, the New Game Plus will allow you to go back through the game again, just with the advantage of having all of the earned weapons, bike upgrades, skills, recipes, all kinds of other stuff, and the different difficulty modes are called Hard 2 and Survival 2, and there will be several different trophies as well to earn. So again, this is pretty cool to see this. It wasn't overly popular, I guess, and people have kind of already forgotten about it. I think it still sold okay. It wasn't really viewed as one of their top tier games, as like a God of War or a Spider-Man, for example, but I am glad to see Sony going back and just doing some free updates for these games that they're selling. So if you're a Days Gone fan, might be worth booting it up. That's September 13th it'll be out. You could get the free download and do New Game Plus, go through it all over again with all your really cool weapons and upgrades and everything. And guys, some of the quickies out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. I don't even know what to call this thing. Nintendo uploaded a trailer, right? And then they put it up on Twitter and everything else. And it just says a new game experience or new experience. And that was it. It seems that they're going to have more information September 12th. So what's that, I guess, next week? They'll have more information, but they didn't even name the thing. What they basically showed here in the trailer were several different parts of the world using this thing, and they had different setups and scenarios as to how they were using it. Now, it appears to be a hula hoop type accessory that can bend and move in your hands, and then you snap a Joy-Con controller into what would appear to be the top of it, and I guess at that point, it will read the Joy-Con while it's being moved with like the accelerometer, for example, gyro. The infrared might have some sort of play in what they're doing with it, but it almost looks like something crazy in terms of what we saw with Labo, just something a bit different. And I almost feel like looking at this, it seems like based on the trailer they were showing is that it has to do with exercise or maybe like a Wii Fit type scenario, just not with a balance board, I guess, just with the hula hoop looking thing. Look, it's so hard to predict Nintendo at this point because that R&D lab must be nuts. Like, it must be Willy Wonka style, like that level of crazy at times, but they come out with some really insane looking things that most of us wouldn't have thought about. That's one of the reasons, by the way, I was really excited when Miyamoto suggested that they have to recreate the controller as we know it. If they are able to bring out stuff like this, what will they end up doing with the overall control design that we know as a traditional controller? They also had what appeared to be a strap for their leg, and all the different scenarios they were showing, a lot of them had to do with exercise, it seemed. Now, there were a few where it was a little different. They were kind of like pushing the hula hoop thing together like over and over again. There was one point where they were doing sit-ups and holding it over their head, and they were moving in all these different directions and everything, but it seemed to be basically, you'd hold the hula hoop in some way, and then you would have something strapped to your leg, which most likely will track how you are moving, jogging in place, jumping at certain times, things like that. It almost reminded me of what we were doing with things like the Kinect without the camera, obviously jumping up and down. But the Joy-Con controllers, I mean, they're set up for stuff like this, right? They have all different types of technology in them, and we saw it with Labo. There were some crazy uses of those Joy-Con controllers with Labo that I would have never thought of, right? Whether it's playing the piano by using the infrared and it can see the little stickers and which ones go up and down, and then it plays a sound. So I don't even know what they're going to call this thing. Seriously, it's so hard to say. I wouldn't even have thought of Labo for like the cardboard kits, but we'll see. You'll have to let me know what you think they're going to call it. What do you think about it? Everyone seems confused about this whole thing, and I get it, but I'm going to lean into it being mostly for exercising over anything else, but I guess they could attach some sort of game to it. I just question how well it's going to sell. The one good thing is, though, it'll probably be really cheap because it looks like it's just the hula hoop thing and I guess a leg strap. It doesn't look like there's any hardware with it unless they bundle it with Joy-Con controllers. We'll see. Next up, let's talk about this madness with PlayStation UK. I'm gonna leave it at that, madness. Because this is a tweet that they put out in response to someone else regarding the X or the cross button. You know, the button at the bottom that we press generally to select things on the menu unless you're playing something like Metal Gear Solid where it's circle. Well, check this out. They go down the list: triangle, circle, cross, and square. If cross is called X, it's not. Then what are you calling circle? Basically playing like, hey, if you're calling, circle a circle, this is a cross, not an X. And that really got me thinking. I've always called it X. And I wonder how many other people did as well, because I do know some people who would call circle O, and I'm like, no, it's circle. But then we would call X, we would call it X, we wouldn't call it cross. And that kind of made me think for a second, but this is PlayStation UK telling everyone that it is cross. And I thought to myself, I said, okay, well, I have a Twitter. Let's ask everyone. Well, it looks like quite a few people, as you're seeing here. I mean, I put it up for a couple of hours just to see, and I had over 5,000 votes. 90% seem to say that they call it X, and a lot of people were confused as to where the cross talk was coming from, only to be pointed that it's PlayStation UK mentioning that, and no, I think it's X. I mean, I get that it technically doesn't make sense because circle shouldn't be circle then, but I always looked at it as Sony came to the market and they wanted to do shapes because it was universal, right? It was like triangle, square, circle, but I never looked at X like cross. I always looked at it as X. I don't know, something about just the PlayStation button would always be X, so you'll have to let me know. It is an interesting conversation, and this is PlayStation telling us it's supposed to be cross. I just never called it across. So let me know what you think down below. Next up, let's talk about Tokyo Game Show that's coming up next week. Let's talk about Sony's lineup as we head into the presentations and everything that's going to happen. One game was going to be at this event, but it sounds like it's not going to be like anything new. But here's the list that we have currently for the different Sony, I guess, just PlayStation games they're going to have at their live presentation, it sounds like. I don't know if they're doing a live stream or what's happening here. It sounds like they're going to have like a stage presentation. Sony, again, is kind of iffy this year on just events in general, but we did get a list, as you're seeing here. Gamatsu had the details on this one. Call of Duty, Death Stranding. We did hear about Death Stranding, as Kojima mentioned this at Gamescom, that he was going to have a lengthy trailer there. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, which is looking very, very interesting, I would say. Final Fantasy VII Remake, that makes sense. Gran Turismo Sport, Neo 2, Project Resistance, which everyone's really paying attention to right now, and then Yakuza Like a Dragon, that also makes a ton of sense. The other one I was talking about was Ghosts of Tsushima. That's one that a lot of us have been looking at because there has been rumors about it being a cross-generation game, and we've seen some stuff about it, right? But not as much as I would have liked, right? I almost thought we were going to get a release date by now for like early next year, but that hasn't happened either, or just next year in general. And it sounds like it's just going to be them replaying the same trailers just to show it off to the crowd and the audience there, or the attendees. So looking at this, I'm of course looking at Capcom's Project Resistance. That'll be good. The new Yakuza game. And then I'll keep looking at something like Death Stranding and Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. But it seems like a pretty straightforward presentation there. I'm trying to think of the companies to really pay attention to at this Tokyo Game Show. And I guess the big one that most people are going to pay attention to is probably Capcom, because they're actually already kind of talked about a game. Maybe Sega. Sega could be interesting to watch as well, but there will be a lot of stuff coming out of Tokyo Game Show. It's just definitely going to be more for, surprise, the Japanese audience. But hey, you never know, we could get some cool stuff. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Overwatch on the Switch. We, of course, had it unveiled officially, we'll say officially, the other day during the Direct. We'd already kind of known about it because it was leaked out like 4 different times, the case being one, then Eurogamer, then Kotaku. But it is happening next month. But there's still some questions about this version of the game, specifically about the resolution and frame rate. Typically, people like to have higher frame rates on these types of games, right? Even on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. But it looks like this is going to be a 30 frames per second game. As you're seeing here, we had this tweet from the community manager, and Nazi Ferris says, Overwatch runs smoothly at 30 frames per second with outputs of 900p docked and 720p undocked. And that didn't seem to sit great with everyone, mostly because Paladins manages to get 60 frames per second out of the Switch, whereas Overwatch is going to get half of that. And yes, the extra frames, as you can probably tell with something like Paladins, helps tremendously. It really, really does. In fact, if you are playing Paladins constantly right now on the Switch because you like kind of like that hero-style shooter, going from that to Overwatch, it's going to feel slower. And it might even feel, some people have described, like I have before, that it feels like you're underwater almost because it just doesn't feel as responsive. That said, I think people will still enjoy Overwatch on the Switch as long as it is a very stable, we'll say very, very stable 30 frames per second, because I watched people enjoy Doom despite that getting cut in half to 30 frames, and people played online multiplayer, they played the single player, and they enjoyed it. So yes, the 30 frames per second, obviously not ideal compared to 60, especially with something like Paladins compared to it, but I think people will still enjoy it. The other interesting thing is it's going to use native voice chat. That app, not gonna be the case here. You're just gonna plug it in. Apparently Blizzard servers will handle it, and you'll be off and running with native voice chat, which is great because I can't stand that app. It's really annoying to have to use it. I'm glad to hear that that is the case, but it still makes me wonder why Nintendo is doing this, where some games use the app, other games do not. Actually, we're getting to the point now where the majority of games don't use that app at all for voice chat. So I'm just waiting for Nintendo to jump in with that with the next Splatoon or something. Look, I know most people say Nintendo is like policing their own stuff, but they don't do that with their games when it comes to things like, you know, censoring them and if you look at the eShop, there are some obvious cases where, okay, maybe that shouldn't be completely in front of kids, the same kids that Nintendo is concerned about doing voice chat online. If only they had a parental app that you could use. Oh wait, and let's finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This one's from Nova saying, Xenoblade Remake was needed. So many people didn't play it due to limits of copies out. Also, the Wii couldn't handle the game well. This is what the game deserves. I do hope we do get a new Xeno game sometime. I doubt we'll see anything till 2021 unless it's their new IP. So that is also assuming that this Xenoblade remake remaster, right, wouldn't come out until next holiday, that could actually be a mid-year, even possibly earlier year game. I mean, it could be like an April or even a May or June release. It doesn't necessarily have to come in the back half of the year, I would say. And here's the thing, Monolith has been hiring like crazy, and I don't think they're hiring to do this remaster remake of Xenoblade, and I don't think they're hiring all these people to also just run support on Breath of the Wild 2. I think they are still building some other really big game, whether it is the next full-on Xenoblade game or it's some sort of new IP. I think you'll still see something from them. You could see something next year because I don't think a new IP is going to run interference on this one, right? Like, I don't think people are just gonna be like, oh, well, now I don't need Chronicles. I don't need that now. I'm gonna get the new IP when that comes out in 2021 or 2022. I think they can still announce it, right? And just, it would be something for the following year. But I think it's good to see Xenoblade Chronicles get this remake because it does need to be able to stretch his legs from the Wii. I mean, it pushed that Wii hard. In some instances, I was surprised the Wii could even do it. Seriously. So it is going to look like, I think, a completely new game, and it's going to have cut content added in. Excited for it. I think it's going to be really neat. And next year, we already have a couple games to look forward to, and then I'm sure Nintendo will probably pack that year as well, because 2019, especially the back half, crazy packed. I just hope Nintendo decides to stretch out these releases next year rather than just lump them all in the last like 3 months. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it's the Sony, the Cross versus X controversy. Let me know which side you're on there. I think a lot of people are on X based on what I've seen, but Sony says it's Cross. Also, what about this weird Nintendo peripheral new experience, new way to play? Let me know your thoughts on that trailer and what they're showing us there. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.